I've spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on winter clothing over the years to keep myself warm while bike commuting through a Canadian winter. Today I'm going to share with you the simple and more affordable system that works for me that should keep you warm through all of your winter activities, whether it's bike commuting or cross-country skiing or just going for a walk in the winter. Hey everybody, I'm Tom and this is Shifter, a channel about urban cycling and bike commuting. And if you find the tips in this video helpful, maybe take a look at my course on bike commuting. If you've ever heard anything about dressing for winter, it's that you should dress in layers. But this doesn't just mean piling on layers randomly. There is a system that works best, and it includes 3 layers: a base layer, a mid or insulation layer, and an outer layer or windproof, rainproof layer. Let's get into each of these. Now let's start with the base layer. You may think this is about warmth, but it's actually not. The base layer is really more about moisture control. Now most people's day-to-day wear is made up of cotton, but if you ever talk to an outdoor adventurer, they like to say things about cotton like it being the death fabric. And there's a good reason for that, and that's because cotton tends to hold moisture. If you're outside in the wintertime, that moisture can really sap a lot of your heat from you. It can actually get really dangerous in some situations. Now, when you're out moving around, of course, your body's gonna sweat. So what you really want in a base layer is a fabric that's going to remove the moisture from your skin, but also insulate at the same time. A lot of synthetic fabrics are much better at this. They can get that moisture off your body, but also keep you a little bit warm. But of course, the ultimate in this is wool. It is pretty amazing in that even when it's damp, it still offers insulation to your body. And if you still think of wool as, your grandpa's itchy wool socks, then I'm happy to report that wool these days is much better. The best, of course, is merino wool. It's soft and comfortable, but still has all those amazing properties. The problem is that everybody who goes outdoors in winter knows this, and so merino wool has gotten very expensive. And so rather than going out and buying a bunch of expensive stuff, I tend to go for a balance. Here's what I do. So I've got a couple of these merino wool t-shirts, and now they're quite expensive, but I bought them years and years ago and they're still in great shape. I wear these almost every day in the winter. They're a nice, good thing to start with. That'll be great for a mild winter day. As things get colder, you probably want to level up a little bit. Again, I'm lucky enough to have a sort of mid thickness merino wool shirt. I think this is an icebreaker. I've had it for probably a decade. It's got some holes in it, but I still use it all the time. This is a really good one when it's getting below 0, past the freezing point. If that stuff's out of your price range, you can get pretty good synthetic thin base layers as well. This one's a mixture of polyester. I think it's from Costco, so it was not expensive. Sometimes you can get a good mix of synthetics and merino wool. If the label says merino wool on it, make sure you check the makeup of it. Sometimes they advertise merino wool and you look and it's only 5% merino. The higher merino content, the better, but that's when the price goes up as well. So if you need a balance, you can find pretty good mixes of synthetic and wool. The same goes for your legs on a base layer. I've got a couple pairs of these mixed synthetic wool long underwear or thermal underwear. They cover up my legs. I find keeping my legs warm does keep my whole body warm. On those really cold days, I've got a thicker pair. This is a really insulating pair of long underwear. This is all synthetic. I couldn't afford the all merino ones, but these do wonders. I put these on and it's really down to like minus 20 degrees Celsius and colder. These work wonders. So that's how I approach my base layer. Next up is the mid or the insulating layer. Called the insulating layer because this is the layer where you really dress for the temperature. The colder it gets, the more warmth you want to put onto your mid layer. Now, when I think about insulating layers, I think as much about air as I do about the material itself. Because what keeps you warm really isn't the material, it's the air. Your body warms up the air around you, and a good insulating layer traps that warm air close to your body as possible, which is why you want a little bit of space in that insulating layer. You don't want it too tight, you want a little bit of air in there, and you also want a little bit of loft in the materials you're using. If it's a mild winter day, I'll wear something like this. This is a cycling sweater. I don't have a lot of cycling gear specifically. This is one thing I do use. It's fairly thick. It's like a sweatshirt. And this is a pretty good insulating layer on a mild day. As the temperature drops below 0, I have this layer. This is a little bit thicker. It's got a little bit more material to it, a little bit more loft. It traps the air a little bit better inside me than that other one. As the temperature continues to drop, I tend to look for more puffy layers. This is where I want that loft. These puffy jackets are great because the material inside, whether it's down or a synthetic material, it's designed to trap the heat inside of them. So these are great. Just make sure it's not squished against your body too tight. You want that loft. Keeping your core warm is super important. If your core is not warm, then your hands and your feet are going to get cold as well, because your body tends to pull blood into your body to keep your organs warm. So you want to make sure your core is warm, and as a way of keeping everything warm. As the temperature gets down there, I do have a full puffer jacket. This one's a pretty thin one, which I like as a mid layer. If the puffer gets too big, I find it a bit bulky to ride a bike or get outside in activities. This one's old. I think it's from Costco. It was not expensive. I've had it for years. It still serves as a pretty good mid layer. Insulating layers on my legs. Well, I do have a pair of athletic pants. These are like cycling specific pants for winter. I usually put these over top of that base layer. They have a little bit of insulation in them, and that does a good job keeping me warm. If you don't have like activity specific pants like that, a good pair of sweatpants can make the difference as well. These are not expensive. Everybody's got a pair of sweatpants laying around. I would just say make sure it's a blend. You don't want a complete cotton because it will just trap that sweat. So that's it for the insulating layer. The last step is the outer or the shell layer. Now in the winter, this is really about keeping the wind out. Now I tend to hate the way that we talk about wind chill these days. We make it seem like it's something that's out to kill you. And yes, obviously, if you're out in the wind removes that warm air from your body very quickly. But you don't have to be scared of it. There's some simple things you can do to insulate yourself from wind and wind chill, and that outer layer is the key part. Now, I like to keep it simple on the outer layer. I go for a water-resistant, wind-proof item as much as I can. This is a thin, wind-breaking shell. You can get these in lots of places. Usually they're fairly affordable. I've had this one, again, for years and years and years. Now, I know a lot of rain-proof gear is marketed these days as being breathable while also water-resistant. And in a lot of cases like Gore-Tex, that's probably true. The problem is it's just not both of those things at the same time. Yes, it can breathe, but that's only if it's not wet. If the jacket is really wet, it's not going to breathe anymore as well, and you're going to end up a sweaty mess. And that's why I tend to go with water-resistant stuff. It just breathes a bit better, which I find better in the wintertime. The same thing with pants. This is just a outer shell. It's wind resistant, which makes all the difference in winter. Now, if you're in one of those places where it rains all winter long, that's a bit different. You may need to go with the waterproof stuff. My only advice on that is make sure that you've got options for venting. A lot of jackets will have zippers in the armpits, that if you can open that up when it's raining so that not too much water gets inside, that will help ventilate things. I find that makes a huge difference. Okay, those are the 3 layers. Now I just want to offer one final layering tip, and this is for those extreme events, and there's a big caveat to this. There is an extra layer you can add, and we'll call this the vapor barrier. Now, if you're in very extreme cold environments, what you can do is get a layer that's below your base layer that does not breathe at all. What that will do is really trap the heat next to your body. So this is using like polyester synthetics that really don't breathe at all. Get one of those on. It will keep all of the heat against your body, and that will keep you really warm in extremely cold days. The trade-off is that you're gonna sweat like crazy. Make sure nobody is around when you're unzipping that thing, because you will lose friends that way, but it is an option of last resort. All right, those are the fundamentals of layering. Now let's see how that applies to specific parts of our body. Next, let's talk about your head and your neck. These are super important. Your brain needs a lot of heat. You lose a lot of heat from your head and your neck, so keeping this part warm will help keep your whole body warm. Now your first step, of course, is wearing a toque, or my friends in the US will call it a knit cap, a stocking cap. What do you guys call this thing? It's called a toque. The colder it gets, the thicker your toque gets. It's pretty simple that way too. For your neck, there's this amazing invention called a scarf. It can make a huge difference. That's kind of it for most winter activities. But if you're riding a bike, things get a good bit trickier, because in the wintertime, a lot of people wear a helmet. These things are great. They're called buffs. It's just a simple elastic material. It's very thin. It can be used for lots of things. It can be used to warm up your neck, which is great. You can also pull it up over your ears and cover your head a little bit, which fits nicely under your bike helmet. But I do find this tends to slip down a bit. So the way I like to do this under a bike helmet is this way. I don't know where I learned this. I picked it up years ago. You turn it inside out. You turn your buff inside out. Put your hand through. Put your hand on your head, and then pull this over. That'll cover up your whole head and your ears. And then you can put your bike helmet under there as well. So buffs are super versatile, can be used for all kinds of things. Now, as the temperature gets even colder, the buff may not be enough. And so you can go full balaclava. Believe it or not, these things are made for warmth. They are amazing at keeping you warm. This will fit under a helmet really easily. The nice thing about these two is sometimes you can get a nice tight one around your nose. So if you wear glasses, keeping a tight seal here may help prevent your breath from fogging up your glasses. I've worn this system down to below -30°C and it's kept me warm. So it does do a lot for that. But there's even one level more, the ski helmet. Now ski helmets are built for this kind of thing. They're insulated, they're warm. They're comfortable. I find this one super cozy. You can buckle it up. You've got the goggles. You're definitely not going to fog up if you've got the ski goggles on that way as well. You can even put the buff or the balaclava underneath this to cover up your neck or your ears. So a ski helmet is a great option if you've got it. Okay, let's talk about keeping our hands warm. This can be a real challenge for lots of people. And those principles of layering can still apply to keeping your hands warm. So as the temperature gets close to the freezing point, I think a thin pair of gloves will do the trick for most of us. The good thing about these is they give you a little bit of warmth, but also give you the dexterity to keep shifting your gears if you're riding a bike. Now, as the temperature drops and you're getting down below zero, I say ditch the gloves altogether. And my hot take is forget gloves, go with mittens. I just find mittens so much warmer. I think it's because there's more heat that gets trapped all together. All your fingers are together. If you're on a bike, these ones I can still shift the gears. That's fine. Some people find that difficult. You can get those lobster mittens that are split. They work. I've never had to own a pair. I've never bothered. Mittens work really good for me. And as it gets colder, you just get thicker and thicker mittens. I think that's the key. You can also layer up your hands. I think you put a thin base layer on and then an insulating layer, just like we talked about earlier. That can make a difference as well. But really, there's no secret to it. It's just the thicker the mittens, the more warm your hands are going to be. If you're on a bike and it gets even colder, there are these things too. These are called bar mitts, also known as pogies. These actually go on your handlebars and they stay there. And then you can put your hands inside. The nice thing about these is you can wear a thinner pair of gloves and you can still manipulate your gears and your brakes inside. These are neoprene ones. You can get really big, thick, robust, warm ones as well. Let's talk about feet. I think cold toes have probably ended more outdoor winter activity early than anything else. So you have to take a lot of care in your feet. Let's start on a mild winter day, just a nice pair of warm socks. You know, I always think the taller the better. I don't know what it is. I don't know the science behind it, but the taller the sock seems to keep my whole foot a bit warmer. This is a blend of wool and synthetics. So this is like a typical winter day. I've got a bunch of these. They're not expensive. More expensive than cotton socks, I should say. These aren't, tube socks you're going to buy at the gas station. These are going to cost a little bit more, but wear them every day in the winter. It just makes your life better. You'll be a happier person if your feet are warm. When it gets colder, I do have a pair of wool socks. These are pretty thick. There's loft in these as well. A good pair of wool socks, like, the brands Darn Tough, those sorts of brands are amazing. Yes, they're expensive, but a couple of pairs is worth the investment. And you can also layer it up. I have this thin pair of really tall synthetic socks that on a really cold day, I put these on first and then I follow them up with a nice warm pair. And that is a good combination of base layer, mid insulating layer, and then your boot acts as the shell, the external shell. So that's a good way of thinking about socks. But there's a caveat to all this. Socks don't exist independently. They exist with your shoes, and you have to think about the way that works as well, because you don't want to squeeze too much into your shoes, because if your foot is too tight, there's not enough air in your shoe, it's not going to keep your foot as warm as it could. So you need to think about that as well. So my first go-to is usually a pair of waterproof hiking shoes. Inside these, if you've got a good pair of winter socks, a good pair of wool socks, that'll keep you warm below zero, I think. These are a pretty good combination. If you're out there for a walk or riding your bike, that's a pretty good mix. You don't have to have athletic boots either. I wear this pair of boots to the office sometimes. I bought these, again, a half size bigger than I usually do so that I can fit a couple of pairs of socks in there. Once it gets colder than that, I layer up my socks and then I go for the big boots. I mean, when it gets really cold, what are you doing? Keep your feet warm. I've got a pair of these. These are gigantic. They're heavy. They're clumsy. There's lots of room inside. I think I bought these a half size bigger so I could fit socks in there. They're not great for riding your bike, but they do the job when it's really cold out. And if that's still not warm enough for you, then don't hold out any longer. Get a pair of heated boots. Unbelievably warm, these things. I use them mostly not when I'm moving. I find them too hot. It's when I have to stand around outside for a long period of time. These ones warm up the inside. They're great. Heated clothing has come so far, the prices come way down. If you need a pair of heated mitts, a pair of heated socks, a pair of heated boot liners, a pair of heated boots, a heated vest, just go for it. Who cares? They're good, they'll work, they'll make your life happier and healthier because you'll be outside more often. Don't be embarrassed. There's some kind of weird masochism about people not using heated stuff in the wintertime. Forget it. Use it. It works. A couple of other things about dressing for cycling in wintertime is you may notice these are not cycling shoes. Yes, I ditch clip-in shoes in the wintertime. I just have never found shoes that clip in that keep my feet warm. One other tip that comes from my friend Doug, who's got an engineer's brain when it comes to winter cycling and has ridden his bike through more winter than I could ever imagine, is think about your pedals. Now, he did some kind of experiments one time, and the metal pedals were much worse for conducting cold into the foot than plastic ones. So if you really want to get deep into it, that's something to consider as well. The pedal type can maybe have a bit of an impact on how warm your feet are. One other thing you could try is the plastic bag trick. What I've heard some people do is after they put their warm socks on, take a plastic bag and put your foot into it, seal it off, and then shove that into your boot. That plastic bag is going to trap all of the heat inside your foot. Your foot will probably not smell the best at the end of that ride, but I've heard it does a pretty good job in keeping your feet warm if you're on a budget and you don't care what you smell like. So those are my clothing tips, but we're not done yet. I've got a couple more pieces of advice for you. And one that I still struggle with sometimes, but when I get it right, really makes a difference. And that is when I'm riding my bike in the wintertime and I'm undergoing a lot of activity, I'm constantly adjusting my layers. I think this is important to think about, that you're not going to have one layer that's going to work the whole ride. One principle is to start my ride cold. I try to go outside, and if I'm feeling a little bit cold when I start my ride, that's probably a good place to be, because as you start to move, you're going to warm up, your internal furnace is going to kick in, and you're going to warm up pretty quickly. So as an old friend of mine used to say, be bold, start cold. And as you warm up, you're going to start sweating. And so it's important that you try to manage it as much as possible. So as I'm riding, I'm always unzipping or taking off scarves or changing mittens. Yes, you may have to stop your ride to do it a bit. This is where I fall apart. Sometimes I'm just so committed to riding, I don't take the time to stop and adjust, but that's an important part of doing it. You want to make sure you're maintaining a good level where you're warm, but not overheating and not getting too sweaty. So doing that constant adjustment is the mistake that most people make, including myself. Adjust as you go. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is just wearing regular clothes in the wintertime for your winter activity. Whether you're going for a walk or going for a bike ride to the pub, you don't always want to gear up with all of this athletic wear. Sometimes you want to wear regular clothes. And actually, when I commute, most of the time I wear regular clothes. But these principles of layering still apply. Often what I'll do is under my pants, I'll put on a pair of long underwear, and when I arrive at the office, I'll slip into the bathroom and take that base layer off. If I'm wearing a shirt like this or a jacket like this, a layer up underneath it, I'll put a couple of thin layers. When I arrive at my destination, I'll take them off and put the outer layer on as well. So you don't have to dress athletically. You can wear regular clothes, but apply the principles of layering to keep yourself warm in the winter. For me, the hardest part has been footwear. Ideally, I want to ride my bike to work and then just roll into the office without having to change shoes. But I found it really difficult to find a pair of shoes that are warm enough on the bike, but not too warm for the office. This fall, I did a bunch of research looking at kinds of boots. I wasn't able to find anything perfect. What I ended up with was a pair of lace-up Blundstones. I bought them about a half size bigger than I usually buy, and then I used my socks to do the insulating. And I would say this only works up to a point. When you get into the really cold temperatures, I would say below -20°C for me, I just give up trying to wear regular clothing. I put on all those extra layers. I'll put the big puffer jacket on, the big boots, and I'll just get to work and bring an extra pair of clothing to change into. Okay, that's it. I hope you enjoyed looking at all of my old clothes as I pulled them out of my drawer and brought them here to this park today. But that really is the principles that I use for winter cycling, and I think that you can apply these things to whatever you're doing in the wintertime. They don't stress if you don't have all the stuff right off the bat. You can add the stuff over time, add a new item or two of clothing each season, and after 3 or 4 seasons, you're going to have a pretty good wardrobe of winter clothing that should keep you happy and outdoors and active all winter long. And it will help make your life better, because getting outside in the winter is amazing, and riding your bike in the winter is just as great as riding it in the summertime. I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.